finances related to marriage, it's really important when couples are considering getting married, throughout marriage, and even when they're pondering divorce. And when I looked at some of the list of the top conflicts in marriage, money was on every top list. When individuals come into a relationship, they're typically coming in already with sort of their own financial personality. And that's sort of a constitution of their beliefs, their habits, and their patterns around finances. They're rooted in the examples that they see from their parents or other influential people in their lives. And it's either the adoption of those, or sometimes it's the rejection of what they've seen. Personality is further refined throughout the journey of life by social groups.
So what are some of the financial personalities that you've seen?
They cut the pie a lot of different ways when we're looking at financial personalities. And so the simplest one I saw was savers, spenders, and sharers. The pie is sliced three ways. I saw a further refinement where they cut the pie into 5 slices: investors, savers, big spenders, debtors, and shoppers. And I sort of like this one. The personalities were defined by being an achiever, an enthusiast, an analyst, or a steward.
Yeah. And are some of these personalities better than others?
There's not necessarily a preferred one, at least in my opinion. But where I do worry is if somebody is extreme on any end. I find it actually somewhat more beneficial to actually look at those underlying beliefs, patterns, and habits that individuals have, and then how they come together as a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, it's so important to understand these things about yourselves and your partner, because when you come under periods of stress, whether it's, having a baby or changing a job or losing a job or, anything like that, it's like
Yes.
really can exacerbate any kind of personality trait or, inherent characteristic. So what are some of the habits and the patterns that you're referencing?
Well, the first one, and you just mentioned it, the word in a different context that I like to talk about, is awareness, like financial awareness. And this has to do with, are we someone that even looks at a price? Are we someone that checks the receipt before we sign the credit card? Next one I like to look at is financial knowledge. And on this one, it's the notion of what knowledge do we already have inherent? Like, some people are raised and they have a lot of good financial knowledge, or they learn it in school or whatever. And then how are we about acquiring new knowledge? The first time I talked about something, a bias called self-attribution. And that has to do when there's an overconfidence in what we think we know already. And I see this sometimes with finances. Next one is openness and communications about finances. Working with a financial advisor creates a space of more openness because you can ask those questions. Spending habits. Knowing, are you a big spender? Are you someone that loves shopping? Are you someone that thinks we should always buy the highest quality? Are you someone that thinks we should always buy the cheapest? Sharing habits. What are my own individual patterns around making contributions to my church, to charities? What are my sharing habits with gift giving? How do I feel about credit card debt, mortgage debt, car payments? And finally, just saving and investment patterns.
I think communication plays a huge role in this, but do you think it's best if a couple has, the same or similar financial personalities, or, is it okay to have different personalities?
It's not necessarily better to have the same. I think that if you can come to agreement on some core ways you handle finances, that's always good. But sometimes we see different personalities can actually be complementary. I also like to ask couples that if there's something new they're considering, which of you has your foot on the gas and which of you has your foot on the brake?
So how do you suggest that couples work together on finances, especially if they do have, differing money personalities?
Early on, I just encourage that they agree that they're going to regularly talk about the important financial things in their life, that they set aside a regularly scheduled time and that they stick with it. Because often, if people don't have a regularly scheduled time, the discussion's not going to happen. The one thing is I really encourage folks to early on get connected with a financial advisor. I think a lot of people have an assumption in their mind that you get a financial advisor when you have a big enough pot of assets to be managed.
Mhm.
And as you know, your role as a financial advisor is much broader than that, and so I think that a financial advisor can be critical to help people understand the implication of their decisions, both on their current financial situation and into the future.
These conversations that really aren't natural to
Mm-hmm,
have,
mm-hmm,
as a couple are being had, and questions are being posed and brought up that wouldn't otherwise be brought up. Financial planning for couples, I think, is so important to get everybody on the same page so that
Yes.
that trajectory stays in place. What are some of the areas that are important for couples to discuss and be intentional about?
It varies among couples, but often there's sort of assumptions that individually they have in their mind, but they don't openly discuss. But then throughout the marriage, and you mentioned some of these, some of the things I really like for couples to be intentional about on their own, and if they need support from the financial advisor, is budgeting and spending plans like you and your husband do, funding an emergency fund, how we want to use credit card and debt, our savings and investment plans, and that would be general, retirement, children's education, major purchases and expenditures like a home, cars, recreational vehicles, major remodeling. And then the last category I have on the list, but there's more here, is spending related to kids. In married life, there's a lot of individual spending that takes place. And it's a space where there can still be some continued conflict. And so if a couple really has good stuff in place, like you and your husband do, and you're in agreement on the major spending, I like to break down the actual day-to-day spending or a routine spending into three categories. First is the lowest level, don't ask, don't tell. I'll explain more about these. Second is the FYI category. And the third is to collaborate before we decide. And so the don't ask, don't tell, that's like the individual things we spend on ourselves. Some nitpicking can happen here because even in individual spending, sometimes we agree to something, but it still isn't what we would do. Second category, but a good FYI to say is, oh, hey, by the way, there's going to be this extra big charge on the credit card, just so it doesn't surprise. The final category, though, on the collaboration, that's those things where no one should act without collaborating with the other one. That would be like a purchase of a new car.
Well, Nancy, this was another wonderful session filled with great information. So I thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Certainly.
I look forward to our final session on children and finance.
Yes. Yeah.
That we're going to have next month. So thank you again. I hope you have a great day.
Well, certainly, you too. Look forward to talking. Bye-bye.